Okay, so this is the whole table. All the things on the left are mainly what? Soluble. All the things on the right are what? Mainly
insoluble.
insoluble. These ones are soluble without exceptions. These ones are soluble with exception. Chloride, bromide, iodide. What is the exception? Silver, lead, and mercury. The third one, which is mainly soluble, is sulfate. So the third one, which is mainly soluble, is what? The sulfates. The sulfates are on the left. وإحنا قلنا anything, and we said anything on the left is what? Is mainly
Mainly
soluble.
soluble.
But what are the exceptions? The same three
C.
exceptions, right? The same three exceptions for the chloride and bromide iodide. And there is three more elements added: the calcium, the barium, the strontium. These ones are insoluble. So again, the same three elements that were with the chloride, bromide, iodide, the same three elements. So sulfates are all soluble except the exceptions. احنا قلنا الexceptions: silver, mercury, and lead. Here, the same three. So I'll just copy and paste the same three and then add another three to them. What are the other three? I will add three from the group 2: calcium and barium and strontium. All of them are in group 2. So this means that anything that is containing sulfate, anything that's containing sulfate is soluble, except who? All sulfates are soluble. What is sulfate? It is anything that has this ion. What is the name of the ion? Sulfate ion. What is the formula of sulfate ion? SO4 2 minus. Again, what's the formula of sulfate ion? SO4 2 minus. SO4 2 minus. So, Mister, if you have, what are the exceptions? Can you remind me again yet? Silver sulfate or mercury sulfate or lead sulfate. So these are the three same ones that I have made with the chloride, bromide, iodide.
Oh,
But then I will add three other ones. What are they? The calcium, the barium, and the strontium. These six are what? Soluble or insoluble?
insoluble.
Insoluble. Mister, sometimes I see you putting the number 2, and sometimes I see you not putting the number 2. Here I can see you putting 2, but here there is no 2. Why is that? Because silver itself is what? Is positive 1, and sulfate is negative 2. So how do you write the formula? You take this one and put it here, and you take 2 and you put it here. So what will be the compound? And then you remove the charges, right? So compound will be Ag2SO4. What about the mercury? Is the same thing. The mercury is the same thing. It's +1 and it is -2, right? Then what do? You shift the numbers. This one come here, this one come here. Then you remove the charge. You remove the minus, and then you remove the plus, and 1 you remove it also. So it becomes Hg2SO4. What about lead sulfate? It's +2, and sulfate is what? -2. When you have two similar numbers, what do you do to them? You cancel them both. So what will be the compound? Lead sulfate. Take care. This is very important because you are going to write the equation, and the equation has to have the right formula. So these 6 are what? Are insoluble. So let's make some examples here from our same quiz. We have magnesium sulfate. Yeah, is it going to be soluble or insoluble? Magnesium, is it from the 6?
لا.
So it
soluble.
is it's going to be soluble. Said, if I said aluminum sulfate, can you write the formula for it? Mr. Aluminum is in group
2.
2.
3.
3.
And
Al3
sulfate
plus
and 2.
Al2SO4 3.
Very good. So I will put the 3. I will put the 3 shifted on the other side. And then I will put the 2 here. But then I will face a small problem. What is this problem? Is that the number is not 4 and 3 now, it's 43. So what I must do,
Put SO4 in brackets.
I have to put bracket here. Whenever there are 2 numbers, even if there is 1, take care, even if there is 1, if this number is 1, you have to put a bracket. Yani if there is SO4 and there is 1, then you also have to put a bracket. Okay? طيب. If there is 1, you have to put a bracket. Who said like that? No, I didn't mean to say so. I meant something else. No, of course, if there is 1, you don't put a bracket. I'm sorry. That was a terrible mistake. You don't put 1. It will be SO4. Sorry. I meant to say something else. Of course, if it is 1, there is nothing to be placed. It will be on here. So if I have Na and SO4, this is +1 and this is -2. You will just shift the numbers, so it will be Na to SO4, and here there is nothing. طيب. Let's see another example here, Said. If I said that I have barium sulfate, is it going to be
SO4 عادي.
it will be soluble or insoluble? Mr. Barium is from the exceptions. So it's going to be
افتكرت يعني the charges بس لا ب SO4 insoluble.
insoluble. And the charges, like you said, it's here like that. We forgot to write the formula. So it is insoluble. It is insoluble. And we said that this one is, I switch it. This one is insoluble. And this one is soluble, right? Okay, what about the ones on the right? The ones on the right actually is very easy. They are very easy. Why they are very easy? Because most of them are what? Insoluble. Most of them are what? Insoluble. Okay, mister, but it is difficult to memorize. No. The exceptions are usually what? What? The exception, if they are insoluble, what will be the exception? The exception will be soluble.
The exception will be alkali metals, acetate, and nitrate.
Yes, the exceptions mainly will be what? Rule 1. Because we said rule 1 is a must to be what? Soluble. So anything in carbonate is insoluble except rule 1. Anything in phosphate is insoluble except rule 1. Anything in hydroxide is insoluble except rule 1. Oxide, sulfide. But what is carbonate ion? What is a carbonate ion? It is C, carbon, then oxygen, then number 3 after the oxygen, and then the charge is 2-. What about the phosphate ion? Anything that ends with P, O, 4, 3, 3-. Anything that's hydroxide ends with O, H, -1. Anything that's oxide. No, oxide is easy, mister. It's group 6, so it is -2. Sulfides is S2-. So all these are mainly what? They are mainly insoluble, except if they come with what? If they come with group 1 or rule 1. So let's have some more quiz. Is it soluble or is it insoluble? So if I said, add calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate. It is soluble. Why it is soluble?
Carbonate.
And we said mostly carbonates are what?
Soluble. insoluble.
Insoluble. Is it from the exceptions? Is it from rule 1? Is it group 1 or nitrate or sorry or ammonium? No, it is insoluble. Right. What if I said magnesium carbonate?
Magnesium carbonate.
Mister, take
Insoluble.
care. It's not only rule 1. There is some few additions. So rule 1 only helped us to memorize it easily, but actually there is a little bit few. يعني in case of hydroxide and oxide, add barium. So hydroxides and oxides are all insoluble except rule 1 and barium. طب sulfides except rule 1 and barium and
Barium,
calcium and
calcium,
strontium,
طب
magnesium.
هي ايه rule 1؟
magnesium.
So these ones will be soluble. They will be
Soluble.
soluble.
هي ايه rule 9؟ هي ايه rule number 1؟
Rule number 1 is this one. This is rule number 1. Group
Yeah.
1 metals. This is called the rule number 1. Group
ماشي.
1 metals, ammonium, nitrate, and acetate. It's called rule number 1. Okay? طيب, carbonates, phosphates, they are all insoluble except rule number 1. Hydroxides, oxides, all insoluble. يعني يا Mr. So this means that if I have magnesium oxide, it is insoluble. Calcium oxide, it is insoluble. Right? طب, what about sodium oxide? This is insoluble, yeah, Mister. This is the rule. Insoluble. This is aqueous, soluble. Okay. What about barium oxide? Barium soluble. But what about barium sulfide?
Soluble.
Calcium sulfide?
Soluble.
Okay. So we have to memorize this rule very well. And as you see, it's very easy. So most people will make this a big issue and think that it is a difficult job. But if you just divide it into these two parts, it's very easy. The things on the left are mainly soluble ions, except the exceptions. So soluble except what? The exceptions. In rule 1, are there any exceptions? No. No exceptions, right? No exception. Don't write exception. Yeah, it's correct. Exceptions. But what about chloride and bromide iodide? They are soluble, except the exceptions, which are silver, lead, mercury. What about sulfates? Soluble except
rule number 1.
Silver, lead, mercury. Yes, for sure, rule number 1. Mr. خد بالك, we are talking about the insoluble. So rule number 1 is soluble. I'm talking about what are the insoluble ones. These ones will be insoluble. So silver, lead, and mercury. And then what else? Do you still remember? Barium, strontium, and calcium. Calcium, barium, and strontium. They are in group 3. In group 2, don't forget them. So they are here. So barium, strontium, and calcium. They are all what? Insoluble. Barium, strontium, and calcium. What about the insoluble ones? The carbonates are all insoluble. The phosphates are all insoluble. Oxides, sulfides, hydroxides. Except what? Except rule 1. Rule 1 will be what? Exception. So it is soluble. And what else? In case of hydroxides and oxides, add barium. In case of sulfides, add barium and calcium and strontium and magnesium. Okay?
Okay.
Right. Now I have found out how to find my salt. Does it dissolve in water? Well, it does not dissolve in water. So accordingly, I can find my method. Why? If your salt is one from the salts that when you put it in water, it does not dissolve, there is only, which is insoluble salt يعني اديني examples كده ايه. Give me some examples. Give me some examples using this table for insoluble salts. I need a lot of examples here. Can you give me a lot of examples? Insoluble salts.
Insoluble.
Use this one. Use this one. Chloride. So what you will tell me? What is the chloride?
Cl.
Cl with what?
Pb.
Pp. So PbCl2. And what else? Mercury.
AgCl.
So HgCl and AgCl. And I will repeat this with what?
Iodide with bromide.
With iodide and bromide on test. I will repeat it with iodide and bromide. I will just remove the Cl. It's very easy. I can just remove this. Oops. Nice trick. And I can remove this also and make it Br. Save time. The 2 will come with the lead only. Why only with the lead? Because the lead is the only one which is 2. HCl, AgI, HgBr, AgBr. Okay? Type. Give me more Said from sulfates. What are insoluble sulfates?
AgSO4 2 minus.
قصدك Ag2SO4.
Ag2S4. HG2SO4.
The Hg is Hg2SO4. برافو عليك. And what else?
PbSO4.
PbSO4. Both of them cancelled out. What else?
CaSO4.
Very good. What else?
BaSO4.
Very good. And what else?
SrSO4.
All these are what?
Insoluble salts.
Okay, can you give me some from here, Ed? Some examples from the carbonates. Carbonates احنا قلنا ايه؟ Is CO3 بقى صح؟ CO3. So give me a lot of carbonates. What can you tell me? I give like a periodic table and you choose from it. What do you want to put with the carbonate?
CO3, CO3, Ba.
Ba. Okay. Put Ba on the left or on the right? On the left صح؟ عشان ال CO3 is negative. Okay. بعدين.
SR, CO3.
Okay.
Magnesium, MgCO3.
جميل. كالسيوم. حلو. وايه كمان؟ ايرون. جميل. copper carbonate. Okay. What else, Mister? Whatever you want. All of them almost is Al2CO3, aluminium, cobalt carbonate, manganese carbonate, whatever you want, mostly will be. أهم حاجة don't touch what? Don't come close to the group 1. Don't come close to the ammonium صح؟ طيب can I choose آخد شوية من الهيدروكسيد يا مستر؟ يوه ده الهيدروكسيدز كلهم insoluble. How did you know يا مستر؟ Mister, I saw their colors. How did you saw their colors? How did you see their colors? مش انت عملت رياكشن مع الصوديوم هيدروكسيد مع كل الميتالز ولا انت نسيت؟ يا مستر صحيح ده احنا عملنا وطلعنا FeOH2 جرين FeOH3 ريدش براون انت نسيت ولا ايه؟ كوبر هيدروكسيد بلو صح؟ زنك هيدروكسيد
كروميوم
وايت كروميوم هيدروكسيد جرين. مش دول كلهم كانوا جايين منين؟ All of this we got it from what? From the sodium hydroxide. From the hydroxide. Yes, when you added sodium hydroxide dropwise and then excess, we get the hydroxide. So all hydroxides are mostly insoluble. But we cannot do this test with the barium. Why? Because barium is what? So I have FeOH2. All these examples that I have mentioned, I can copy them here, right? How did I make them with the reaction with sodium hydroxide? I made them with the reaction with sodium hydroxide. So I have a lot of examples of insoluble salts here. Can you use the phosphate? Yes, Mr. I can use the phosphate, a lot of ions. Can use the sulfides, yes, a lot. بس أهم حاجة don't touch the barium, calcium, strontium, and the magnesium sulfide because they will be soluble. What about the oxide, يا مستر? Oh, calcium oxide, يا مستر. And magnesium oxide, and lead oxide, and zinc oxide, and aluminum oxide, and copper oxide, and can I say sodium oxide? No, yeah, Mr. So this all are examples for insoluble. Mr. I need to prepare them. What do you mean by prepare them? Do you want to put them as a product? Prepare them. Put them as a product or put them as a reactant? Mr. Of course, make them as a product. Of course, make them as a product. What is the method name? Mister, can you please tell me what is the method name? The method name is called they are what? What they are? احنا قلنا they are soluble ولا insoluble? So when you put them in a test tube of water, they are going to dissolve or they are going to settle down?
Form a precipitate, settle down.
They will form a what? A precipitate. So what is the method name? The method name is precipitation. Oh, Mr. That's very easy. So they are all insoluble. So you make them as a precipitate by the method called precipitation method. This is the product which is what? Insoluble salt. Like what, yeah, Mister? Like any one of these. Like any one of these. How you will prepare them? You choose any one and I will tell you. But before telling you, I will tell you the step number one. The step number one is that you add 2 soluble salts. مين هما 2 soluble salts, Mister? The reactants. Do you remember we said how we will make the salt? How we will make the salt? Using what? 2 reactants, صح؟ مش احنا قلنا هنعمل السولت ده من 2 reactants؟
صح.
ايه هو الفيرست reactant؟ Any 2 soluble salts. You choose any 2 soluble salts in condition that they will make the insoluble salt for you. So I choose 2 what? Soluble salts. يعني اللي انت هتستخدمهم عشان تعمل بيهم الانسوليبل لازم يكونوا هم مين يا اياد؟ They have to be what? Soluble. So you choose soluble salt number 1 and soluble salt number 2. How I'm gonna choose it, Mister? I will tell you. It's a very easy job. I will tell you. So can you pick one for me, Ed? Any of them, pick any of these. Or let me pick one for you to pick an easy one. For example, I will choose the silver chloride, the most famous one. The most famous precipitate, the silver chloride. Mister, you said that you are going to put this and make it as a salt. And you said it is made from 2 parts, the positive part and the negative part. Can I ask you something? You said you are going to prepare from what, ya Ed? 2 or 3 salts? 2. Huh? Soluble or insoluble, ya Ed?
soluble.
Soluble. So you need to choose 2 salts. Both of them are soluble. Okay, Mister, let me imagine. You have this here in the product. So it's a must that it will be in the reactants برضه. طالما هنا في AG plus يبقى هنا كمان هيكون في AG plus. Should I put it on the left or in the right, يا On the left or on the right?
On the left.
Because it is a what? It's a metal. It was on the left here, so it will be on the left here. Very good. What about the chloride? ايه رأيك يا سعيد? Where do I put the chloride? On the right or on the left?
On the right.
On the right. Should I keep it here with the second compound or here with the first compound?
On the second compound.
Okay, why don't you keep it here? Mister, if you have it here, لا هتغلبنا ليه وانت عملت الحصة ليه يا مستر وانت عندك سيلفر كلورايد اساسا. So already you have it, why do you want to prepare it if you have it? صح؟ So it's of course here. لو انت كان عندك سيلفر كلورايد كنت هتعمله؟ انت عندك يا مستر already. So I need to keep it here. So now I know the positive of the first compound and the negative of the second compound. I know the positive of the first compound and the negative of the second compound. Okay, what about the other ion here? What should I put? You can put anything. You can put any anion, just in condition. At the end, this one must be what, يا سعيد؟
soluble
soluble. حط أي حاجة أنت عايزها، بس في الآخر ده لازم يطلع يكون إيه؟ soluble. It must be a solid. طب what about here? Also, you can put anything you want, but just in condition that this one is what? At the end, the compound is soluble. طب what are the best choices, Mr. in the exam? Mr. هو هيقول لي كده
HNO3 و NaCl.
the best choice. Mr. هو هيقول لي كده؟ لا، أنا عايز عارف كمان أقول لك على بشرة كويس قوي. He is going to tell you one of the compounds. He will not leave you alone with two unknown. He will give you one of them. But because we are very good, we can even know both of them. The best choices to choose here always is what? Is NO3 in the negative.
و Na.
And any group 1, Na, potassium, lithium in the positive. ليه يا إياد؟ Because NO3 will always make the soluble salt. يبقى أنا دايما لو حطيت NO3 هنا في النيجاتيف، السولت هيكون أكيد عندي إيه؟ soluble. Why, Mr.? Because we said anything with nitrate is what? Soluble. So what is my best choice here? The best choice always is
ولازم
nitrate في
لازم
النيجاتيف.
NO3.
مش لازم، ينفع أي حاجة تانية. بس أنا ليه أغلب نفسي في الامتحان وأقعد أفكر السيلفر هيكون soluble مع إيه؟ وأنا عندي سولت جميل وأمور وبيطلع soluble مع أي حاجة في الدنيا. صح؟ It's very easy to choose this one. Otherwise I will have to think مستر السيلفر كان soluble مع حاجات كتير، لكن اخد بالي مع الكلورايد لا، مع البروميد لا، مع الايودايد لا، مع السلفيت لا. طب وليه اغلب نفسي كده؟ It's better to choose something safe which is always nitrate. طب هو لو سعيد اختار لي حاجة تانية، لو بدل ما يقول لي سيلفر نيتريت قال لي use silver let's say let's say what do you want to choose يا مستر؟ سيلفر دماغي تنحت يا مستر. سيلفر دماغي تنحت. دماغي تنحت. انا عايز اجيب حاجه تانيه بس مش عارف افكر فيها. اسيتيت؟ لا مش اسيتيت. قال لي مثلا
أمونيوم.
مش عارف افكر فيه. خلينا خلينا اسيتيت. خلينا اسيتيت مش مشكله. سيلفر اسيتيت. انا كنت بفكر حاجه تانيه بس طلعت من راسي. سيلفر اسيتيت يا مستر سوليبل. اقول له لا لازم نايتريت؟ نو خلاص هو اختار لي ده. So I must use it. صح؟ مش هروح اختار واحد تاني مكانه. So if you told me how to prepare silver chloride from silver acetate and another compound, I will not go and choose. أنا بس بقول this is the easiest and the safest option. What about the positive? The best option is what? اختار أي حاجة من جروب 1. This for sure will always be positive. يعني أنا أختار إيه هنا يا مستر؟ أحط نيتريت وهنا Na. So did you make the displacement that you said you will do? Yes, I made the displacement that you said that I said I will do. How did you do the displacement, Mr.? This silver, this silver, came here, and this chloride came here and formed your salt. Your salt اللي احنا قلنا عليه اسمه ايه؟ solid, insoluble. It is called what? Insoluble salt preparation. And how did you prepare it? From what? 2 or 3? 2. Soluble or insoluble?
Soluble.
Soluble salt. And what is the other compound, by the way?
NaNO3.
NO3 اللي احنا قلنا عليه. Is it important? No, it's not important. It is another product ومحترم وكل حاجة عندنا وعلى عيننا وراسنا. بالعكس ده احنا كمان we will write it in the equation. But this is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for preparation of the chapter كله اسمه التوبيك كله اسمه salt preparation.
مستر هو الستيت لل NaNO3A
ال NaNO3
solid ولا liquid ولا
ده انت
aqueous؟
لازم تقول لي انت لازم تقول لي ليه؟ لان احنا قلنا الصوديوم must be what؟
soluble.
soluble، وال NO3 must be what؟ soluble. مستر
Soluble.
طب ممكن يكون solid، ممكن يكون solid. لا خد بالك ده نفسه كان aqueous، يعني هنا كان في ميه. if there is water so the solution must come as water برضو، صح؟ ما ينفعش يبقى solid وانت كنت حاطط ميه. يعني انت لو انت جبت شويه ملح وشويه سكر وحطيتهم على ميه، الناتج هيبقى ايه؟ البرودكت هيبقى ايه؟ السولت ديزولفد في الووتر، هيبقى ايكويس برضه، صح؟ ولا ينفع يبقى ايكويس بلس 1 واحد فيهم قاعد سوليد كده مع نفسه من غير ميه، قاعد فوق
Aqueous.
كده. So it has to be aqueous here also. And this one is aqueous and this one is aqueous. Why? Because we said it is a must, صح؟ We said it is a must to be two soluble salts. You cannot use one soluble. خد بالك if you prepare the insoluble salt from one soluble and one insoluble, it is wrong. So take care of these two important rules. Or two important rules. This is from my side. It's not in the book, but I'm telling you two important rules. The first thing, if you prepared the insoluble salt from one soluble and one insoluble, it's wrong. It is wrong. Don't do that. The second rule, don't prepare it from acid and base. Don't prepare it from acid and base. يعني ايه يا مستر don't prepare it from acid and base? I will tell you. يعني don't do like that. HNO3 plus, don't try to put an acid like HNO3 أو HCl مثلا with silver hydroxide بس. Silver hydroxide. This is base and this is acid. If you do like that in the exam, it's wrong. Don't put acids. Put what? Salt. Put two soluble what? Two soluble
Salts.
salts. يبقى أنا عندي ثلاث كلمات هنا لازم آخد بالي منهم. إيه هم الثلاث كلمات إيه؟ Two.
two soluble salts.
Two لازم يكونوا اثنين. Two وتاني حاجة إن هم soluble وتاني حاجة إن هم يكونوا إيه؟ Salts. Not acid and base. Not acid and base. I will use the acid and base in a different one later. Okay. طيب. Mr. I know the basis, the equation now, but I don't know the steps because I see in the book he's asking me about steps also. But let's at least try to take one more to do it by ear and one more by side. Let's try lead sulfate. Again, I'm telling you, in the exam and questions, he is asking me to bring one of them only. But here I'm asking you to make the two. ليه يا مستر انت بتصعب علينا ليه؟ Because if you make the two، يعني ايه the two؟ مش فاهم حاجه يا مستر انت قصدك ايه؟ Here I asked you to write these two، صح؟ انا كنت جايب الاثنين boxes empty. In the exam he will give you one of them. طب why Mr. you asking us to make the two? Because it makes you very good، صح؟ تعمل لك practice كويس جدا. So let's start. Yeah, I'm trying to make two compounds. What should be the reactants? Two
Soluble salt.
soluble
salts.
salt. قول لي يا اياد كده الاولاني لازم يكون فيه ايه؟ لازم يكون فيه ايه يا مستر اكيد؟ ده
PB.
موجود فيه
بي
لازم
بي اه
يكون فيه بي وهنا لازم يكون فيه ايه؟ SO4. Shall I put it
SO4.
here؟ ينفع هنا؟
لا التاني.
هنا؟
لا اللي جنبه.
الاخير خالص. طيب what is the best and the most safe choice to make here؟
بي بي
N
NO3
NO3 and Na.
NaSO4.
NA.
تمام. حاجتين تاخد بالك منهم. You must make two soluble salts. وخد بالك من حاجة تانية بقى الناس بتنساها. When you put the NO3 with the lead, the formula will change. الفورميولا
كنت
بتتغير.
لسه هقول.
الفورميولا بتتغير. يعني ايه الفورميولا بتتغير؟ يعني هنا it is PbSO4 no numbers. Why؟ Pp2 plus
وSO4 2 minus فكنسل
SO4
that.
2 minus they will cancel out. but here PP2 plus and NO3 minus. سعيد ده هيطلع ايه الكومباوند؟ هنا 2
PbNO3 brackets 2.
2 والتانية يا اياد Na plus 1 و SO4 2 minus
Na2 SO4.
SO4. ممتاز. يبقى خد بالك من الحكايه دي عشان معظم الناس وهي بتكتب الايكويشن بتنسى ان الكومباوند الفورميولا بتتغير ليه؟ الارقام دي بتعتمد على ايه؟ على ده وده. طب لو بدلنا ده بحاجه تانيه مش لازم ما تروحش تعمل كوبي وبيست. الناس بتروح تعمل كوبي وبيست تلاقي ان اي 2 هنا تقوم حاطه بي بي 2 هنا، او تلاقي هنا بي بي مفيش حاجه تقوم حاطه زي ما هو كده تعمل كوبي وبيست. This is a very big mistake. طب سعيد let's pick another. So I choose two soluble salts. هنا خد بالك ما تنساش تكتب aqueous and this one is aqueous and this one is what? Solid. طب let's pick another one from our ما شاء الله عندنا very big number of insoluble salt. I will choose for example this time the calcium carbonate. I will choose the calcium carbonate. How can I prepare calcium carbonate سعيد؟
تحتاج كالسيوم كربونات CaNO3. لا، CaNO3 brackets 2.
Ca مع NO3 brackets 2 plus وده aqueous
Na
صح؟ ده aqueous
aqueous.
صح؟
NaCO3.
Na لا بالراحة.
CO3.
Na
CO3 بس انا مش متأكد التشارج بتاع CO ايه.
السي او 3 احنا اتفقنا ان هي
2 بلس
2
لا 2
minus
ماينس.
2 minus. Is this 2
فتبقى
minus؟
Na2CO3.
جميل جدا. طيب يا مستر انت قلت لنا على شرطين. Two important rules do not do صح؟ اللي هما ايه؟ Don't put acid and base and don't make one soluble and one insoluble صح؟ وفي 3 rules to make. ايه هم الثلاثة رولز اللي لازم اعملهم؟ اول حاجة ان انا استخدم
لازم يكون 2 salts
two
soluble
soluble وsalts.
salts.
وتاني حاجة don't forget the formula صح؟ ما تنساش الفورميولا هتحصل لها ايه؟ هتتغير مش كده؟ نمبر 3 البالانس يا مستر كمان. the balance don't forget the balance. ليه يا مستر؟ هنا انت عملت بي بي ان او 3 وما تنساش البرودكت الاخير. ايه ده احنا نسينا البرودكت الثاني. مستر ده مش مهم. لا خد بالك في الايكويشن don't forget it. You have to write it in the equation. So what is the other product هنا يا سعيد يا اياد في الكومباوند بتاعك؟ اياد اياد
NaNO3.
اياد
they
اياد
cancel out.
اياد اياد
ايه
اياد
اه NaNO3.
ان او 3 ده بلس 1 and ده ماينس 1
اه
والتاني
آه، N NaNO3
برضه نفس الكلام.
نفس الحاجة.
طب انا عايز اعمل بالانس يا سعيد للاولاني ده. I need to make balance. البي بي هنا is 1 اتوم وهنا كام اتومز؟
1
1. والنيتروجين هنا
2
وهنا لازم احط
2.
2.
كده Na is balanced.
كده ان ايه is balanced. بعدين كده كله
اس
بالانسد
اس
خلاص.
كده كله
كده
خلاص عمل
كده كله
balance.
بالانسد خلاص. تعالى نتاكد كده ال N2 وال N2 الاكسجين O3 multiplied by 2 O3 multiplied by 2. التاني يا اياد الكالسيوم.
آه،
كالسيوم از بالانسد. ال NO3 مش بالانسد لازم احط
نحط 2.
2. كده بقت بالانسد خلاص. اوكي. and the physical states طبعا لو طلبها مني في الامتحان لو ما طلبهاش مني احسن ان انا احطها. don't forget the by product. don't forget the other product in the equation. معظم الناس بتنساها. طيب so the last thing to know is the steps. The last thing to know is the steps. How to make this practically. So I have two test tubes semester. So practically I have two test tubes. What do they contain? The first one contain what? The first soluble salt. Soluble salt number 1. And the second one, what does it contain? soluble
soluble salt.
salt number 2. And then I will just mix them together. So I will just مش هعمل كده So soluble salt number 1 and then soluble salt number 2 and then mix them together in one new test tube or in one flask or whatever you want to put in. So let's put it in one flask. It will form what, يا مستر? It will form the soluble salt ولا insoluble salt بنقول? It will form insoluble salt.
Soluble salt.
Let's say we made silver iodide. So what is its color? It is yellow. Silver iodide is yellow. So how to get this from, there is water, صح؟ في water وفي silver iodide. How to extract this one? I will just take this container and I want to get the precipitate out. So what to do?
Filtration.
I will make filtration. So this is the filter paper. This is the funnel. This is another flask. And then I will make filtration. What will happen when there is filtration?
The water with the residue will precipitate will be the filtrate.
ايه رايك؟ الووتر تبقى ريزيديو ولا الفلتريت؟
لا الريزيديو والبريسبيتيت هي الفلتريت.
ريزيديو هو السوليد صح؟
لا الريزيديو هو اللي بينزل في الفلاسك.
لا الفلتريت هو اللي بينزل في الفلاسك. اسمه
صح صح
فلتريت
صح
اللي
صح.
بيحصل له فلتريشن. الووتر هتنزل تحت ومين اللي هيفضل فوق هنا؟
الاي جي اي.
الاي جي اي هيفضل هنا ايه؟ This is the AGI and this is what the water come down. Okay, so I made filtration. مستر لسه عليه شوية water. لسه عليه شوية water. What do I do? Take the steps from the same notes. الريزيو دوت ممكن يكون عليه شوية من، عايز انضفه كده واخليه حلو وجميل. So I will just wash it with distilled water. يعني ايه distilled water؟ يعني water فيها H2O has nothing else. عشان اغسل ما يبقاش عليه اي نوع من انواع impurities. So there will be no impurities of any type and then dry the residue in the oven. Dry residue in the oven. Okay. So first mixing وبعدين mixing بعدين stirring بجلاس رود وبعدين هيطلع عندي precipitate. اعمل filtration وبعدين هاخد الريزيديو اعمل washing مع distilled water وبعدين اعمل drying in the oven. This is the steps of the precipitation method. So this is practically the precipitation. طيب Mr. I have now two other methods to prepare, but this time what do I need to prepare? أنا خلصت خلاص إيه يا سعيد؟ خلصت السوليبل ولا الانسوليبل salts؟
insoluble salts.
I finished the insoluble. Now I need to prepare the soluble salts. And you said, Mr. at the beginning that there are three methods. We finished only one of them. We finished the precipitation. وانت قلت لي انا عندي طريقتين تانيين. واحدة اسمها titration وواحدة اسمها crystallization صح؟ When do you use the crystallization أو excess phase method? And when do you use the titration? بس الأول خليك مركز معايا. You both of them you use them for what? For the what?
Insoluble salts.
لا.
soluble salts.
The soluble salts. When do you use the titration and when do you use the excess phase? If it is soluble salt واحنا ضربنا كتبنا did we write some examples for the soluble ولا لا؟ Yes, we wrote a lot of examples for the soluble. ولا كتبنا للسوليبل بس؟ ما كتبوش examples للسوليبل. قلنا أي حاجة with the sodium, with potassium, with lithium, ammonium, nitrate, acetate. If you have chloride, bromide, iodide with the exceptions. If you have sulfate ion, لا من غير exceptions, and if you have sulfate ions without the exception. Or if you have barium oxide or hydroxide, or if you have barium or calcium or strontium or magnesium hydroxide or oxide. If you have any of these, you can use one of these two methods. If your salt contain one of the ions from rule 1, it will be prepared with titration. So if your salt contain one of the ions from rule 1, it will be prepared with titration. يعني ايه يا مستر؟ يعني soluble وفيها rule 1. What does it mean soluble and rule 1? يعني has sodium, has potassium, has lithium, has ammonium. In this case, it will be what? Prepared by titration. طب if it is something else, يعني ايه something else? What's the meaning of something else? Magnesium, calcium, zinc, aluminium, any other iron, any other soluble salt that does not start with the rule 1. ما فيهاش لا sodium ولا potassium and this. Okay. Again, when do you use these two methods to prepare the soluble salt? When do you use the titration and when do you use the excess base? I use the titration when you, Mr. Let me give you some examples. What is the other method name again? The excess what?
Excess base crystallization.
Or crystallization. So let me give you an example. Saeed, I say, for example, I have sodium sulfate. Is it soluble or insoluble?
Soluble.
Do I use titration or excess base or precipitation?
Titration عشان it's a soluble salt وhas ions from rule 1.
ممتاز. بس لو قلت يا إياد magnesium sulfate, magnesium sulfate is not from the exceptions of the sulfate. It's not from the sulfate exception, so it is soluble. It's exception silver, mercury, lead, calcium, barium, strontium. So it is soluble, but it's not from group 1. So what do I use?
يبقى excess base.
Excess base method. Type if I have aluminum chloride. رايك يا سعيد؟
It's aluminum chloride is soluble.
Okay.
But it doesn't have ions from rule 1 you use crystallization.
جميل. طب what if I said silver chloride يا إياد؟ titration ولا excess base؟
excess base.
ولا ده ولا ده because it's insoluble.
أيوة, it's insoluble. Take care, it's insoluble. It was a trick. Sorry. It is a precipitation method. It is precipitation. وخد بالك قبل ما تسأل نفسك هو جروب 1 ولا مش جروب 1 اسأل نفسك إيه؟ Is it soluble ولا
Soluble or
insoluble?
it's soluble.
Is it soluble? If it is no, then use what? استخدم إيه؟
Precipitation.
Precipitation. If yes, أسأل نفسي سؤال تاني. أسأل نفسي إيه؟
Does it have ions from rule 1?
Is it rule 1? Yes or no? If it is yes, then
Titration.
use titration. If no, then use
Excess base crystallization.
excess base method of crystallization. Just summarize as it is. Okay. I don't know if there is time. I don't know if there is enough time. Okay. We'll take the titration because titration is a little bit easier one. The titration is a little bit easier one. We'll take the excess base method next time because it has some explanation. Okay, Mr. Do you remember what did we say we will use for precipitation? Use what? Use what? for precipitation? What do you use for precipitation? Do you use what is the things اللي احنا قلنا لازم نستخدمها؟ قلنا نستخدم ايه؟ Two
Two soluble
soluble
salts.
salts. Don't use soluble and insoluble. Don't use
use acid or
acid
base.
and base. ده في حالة الايه؟
Precipitation.
الانسوليبل. طب في حالة يس يا مستر، في حالة it is soluble what use in both cases. يعني ايه in both cases يا اياد؟ يعني سواء كانت rule 1 او not rule 1. في الحالتين دول استخدم ايه يا مستر this time؟ use acid and base again. So if it is soluble and it is either from rule 1 or not rule 1. في الحالتين استخدم ايه؟ Two soluble salts؟ لا، استخدم acid and base. So for soluble salts do not use two soluble salts. لو استخدمت اتنين soluble salts هيعتبرها لك ايه؟ wrong. Don't say it is filtration. Do not. خلينا بس هي بس دلوقتي واحنا بنتكلم في حاجات تانية بعد. So don't use two soluble salts. You must use what? An acid and a base. طب يا مستر هعمل ايه؟ نفس الحكايه اللي احنا قلنا عليها في الاول بالظبط. نفس الحكايه اللي في الاول قلنا عليها في الاول بالظبط. You again make the product. You again make the product. What is your product? Let's say we said some of the examples here is sodium sulfate. Sodium sulfate. سعيد احنا قلنا هنستخدم صوديوم سلفيت. We will make from two what? Oh, I need to be careful now. I need to be very careful. I will use sodium. So I will put sodium where? Where should I put the sodium?
First box.
I'll put it in the first box. And sulfate?
The second box in the right.
Very good. Now I cannot use two soluble salts. I must use an acid and a base. The place where there is a metal is always what? metal oxides.
Acidic, basic.
ينفع acidic. احنا قلنا الميتالز form what? acidic oxide ولا basic oxide?
Basic oxide.
Basic oxide. So the metal is the one that will have the what? The base. And the other side ديت هيكون فيه ايه؟
non-metal.
الاسيد. جميل جدا. Which acid should I use؟ مستر هسألكوا سؤال شكله صعب ولكن هو يكون سهل. ما أنا محتار أستخدم HCl ولا أستخدم H2SO4 ولا أستخدم HNO3؟ يا أخي هو مكتوب عندك إيه؟
HCl.
ده هو مكتوب عندك إيه؟
SO4.
SO4. معقول عندي SO4 وأنا أروح أستخدم HCl؟ ده أنا كل اللي عايز أحطه هنا إيه؟ H بس. This is all that I need to put here is.
هنحط OH صح؟
وهناك هحط OH. ممتاز جدا. So here I will put H and here I put OH. So now I have what? Acid and
base وacid.
acid and base. Don't use two salts. لو قلت NaCl وقلت هنا مثلا او قلت NaNO3 مع مثلا H2SO4 خد بالك wrong. Why? Because this is not salt. This is what? Acid. This is not salt. not قصدي اقول حاجه ثانيه انجليزي قلت هنا MgSO4 لو قلت كده MgSO4 مع NaNO3 this is wrong because this is not an acid. Not an acid. So in the soluble you must use an base. Acid and base. Okay, we'll take the next step of the titration next time because we are almost done. I have another session fortunately now. وإلا كنا كملنا شوية. Next time we'll see how we'll use the purette together with the flask, together with the indicator to make the titration and what are the steps. And we will also take the steps of the excess base method. عايزين نبقى فايقين شوية عشان ايه. Most probably it will be a little bit early, like 6. I will just adjust the time and tell you exactly, okay? If you don't mind, just don't forget to send me the notes, and then I will confirm the time with you. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Bye-bye.